Do you ever watch a prospect and fail to understand the evaluation of nearly every other person? Because when I turned on the tape for Christian Watson, I was blown away, immediately wowed by his rare combination of explosiveness, size, style, and substance. There was something very different about Christian Watson. His look is different. His speed is different. And his film isn't just fun, it's phenomenal. How is a wide receiver who dominated his competition in college like a man among boys, who looks like this and runs like this, being overlooked and undervalued? It baffles me. Let's put it this way. If he's wearing a different helmet in these highlights, I think he's a top 10 pick. It may not be the popular take, but I believe Christian Watson is a game breaker with true superstar potential. And you know what? I'm willing to say Christian Watson is not only the ultimate freak show, but my favorite prospect in the 2022 NFL Draft. As draft analysts, we have a tendency to overthink things. Remember when the draft community didn't think DK Metcalf could turn left? My point is, every draft there are one or two prospects that are just different, and we have trouble accepting that. Christian Watson is different. Oftentimes in the scouting process, we focus too much on what a player can't do, and we forget about what he can do. And what Christian Watson can do, not many other people on earth can do. Let's begin with the obvious. He's fast. I'm talking very fast. For 6'4", his explosiveness is special. The 4.36 40 time does not do it justice. His game speed is downright terrifying. Dare I say, Christian Watson is faster on a football field than he is on a track. Watson is electric, yet graceful, smooth in a way you rarely see from a wideout of his size. On the field, he consistently created mind-boggling amounts of separation with just pure speed alone. I'm telling you, his ability to blow by opposing defensive backs is real. Not a single player that faced Christian Watson came anywhere close to running with him. This kind of speed opens up an offense and is one of the major defining skills of a difference-making NFL wide receiver. You have probably heard the phrase, speed kills. And it's true, but just as important is its ability to frighten. DBs are straight up scared of this guy, and I don't blame them one bit. You better back off, because if you miss that jam at the line, good night. This guy gets off the ball like a rocket, and the way he can break down, re-accelerate to burn you on a double move, it's what nightmares are made of. Christian Watson is the definition of if he's even, he's leaving. Christian isn't just one of those fast guys who can run in a straight line either. He's ridiculously twitchy for his frame, possessing the feet and hips to freeze opposing corners, the fluidity and change of direction of a much smaller human. But where you can truly see his quicks in their most glorious are his yak plays. Watson is special with the ball in his hands. He pairs his dangerous acceleration with natural open field vision. He can feel defenders on his back and react innately to create yards after catch. And then with his inhumane speed, he is capable of turning the corner and breaking any play open. The North Dakota State staff saw the exact same thing that I do. They knew that this guy was a freak of nature and gave him the ball in every way possible. Watson, well, he did the rest. making big plays on jet sweeps, and even occasionally lining up as a halfback in the backfield. He also averaged 26.4 yards per return over his collegiate career and housed it twice. Christian Watson's dynamic capabilities are truly second to none in this class. 8 yards per attempt running the football, 20 yards per reception. This is what strikes me as so incredibly different about Christian Watson than other tall, fast guys of the past. He dominated all over the field at a multitude of positions. Watson is a receiver, a running back, and a returner in a 6'4" package. And if his versatility isn't appealing enough to you, how about his attitude? Watson plays with the swagger and the confidence of an elite weapon and the relentlessness of a defensive end. This man clearly takes pride in his blocking. He downright wanted to get dirty. He loves to impose his will on cornerbacks in the run game. The best, most willing blocker I saw on tape. How often do you see a receiver with this athleticism, versatility, and edginess? While I don't know him personally, judging by his interviews and his track record, Christian Watson seems to be a humble and hard-working guy who loves the game of football and actively wants to get better, which will serve him well at the next level. Someone who isn't a hack YouTuber like me,
You're a hack!
and can attest to the player in person up close, is Watson's former quarterback and current 49er, Trey Lance. Trey Lance had this to say about his former teammate. Special dude. You can see that just physically. How big he is and fast he is. Great person to be around. Obviously one of my closest friends. Someone that helped me get to where I am. Keep in mind that Trey Lance has seen Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk up close and personal every day at practice. So he definitely knows what a first-round wide receiver and what special looks like. It kinda sounds like I'm describing a generational talent here, right? Well, let's hold our bisons for a second and examine the supposed flaws in young Christian Watson's game. His most commonly asked question is the lesser competition question, how he dominated lesser athletes at a smaller school. Some people ask the question about his production, and despite playing lesser competition, he put up lesser numbers. Some say that he has weak hands and definitely has drop questions, which they're not a fan of entering the NFL. And lastly, the nuance of his game. They call his route tree limited and his game raw. So first, let's start with the why he went to North Dakota State instead of Alabama or Ohio State, because you'd figure 4'3", 6'4" would go to Alabama, right? Well, the only offer coming out of high school was from North Dakota State. As an athlete, Christian Watson was undersized early on and claims to be a late bloomer. So now that the why is out of the way, let's get to that competition. Yes, he played lower comp, but he also dominated that lower level of competition. And that to me is what matters most. People who say otherwise are rather being lazy and only looking at the surface level stats, or they might be completely neglecting the tape. Again, when you turn on the tape, Christian Watson looks like an alien. According to Sharp Football Analysis, Christian Watson led all wide receivers in this year's class in a stat that they call target yards added, which defines as the receiver's yards per target and subtracting the quarterback's yards per attempt when throwing to anyone else. Meaning that Watson was statistically the most valuable and efficient wide receiver in the class. His 4.33 yards per route run is also the highest in the class, and the only prospect to top 4 yards per route run in 2021. Comparing the same group of wide receivers in yards per reception, Watson comes out on top again by a whole 2 yards. As you can tell by now, Watson is the master of the big play. 30% of his plays went for 20 plus yards. On top of that, he had 14 touchdowns of 40 plus yards over his career. Watson was so dominant, in fact, that the coaching staff really didn't even bother moving him into the slot for easier mismatches. Watson only really lined up in the slot 17% of his snaps over the past 3 seasons, compared to 80% lined up out wide. I rarely, if ever, saw Watson in motion or running an easy route that was designed for him to get the ball. He pretty much just lined up on the outside and was asked, "Hey kid, go make some plays." In other words, he was not utilized in college to his max potential to put up max statistics like other wide receivers in this class. He was often at his best in the team's closest games. Watson, in many big games, accounted for many of the yards. In countless games where he had over half the yards, 70% of the yards, 80% of the yards, including a game playing with Trey Lance, where he caught 7 balls for 107 yards and accounted for 79% of Trey Lance's passing yards in a game where they won 9-3 over Illinois State. I challenge you to find a wide receiver who carried a passing offense more than Christian Watson did throughout his years at North Dakota State. Just look at the 2021 season for the quarterbacks on his team. 2,257 total passing yards, 20 total touchdowns on 252 attempts with 153 completions. Watson's 2021 season, 43 receptions, 800 yards, and 7 touchdowns. On the surface, that doesn't look super impressive, right? Well, when you account for the percentage of offense, Watson had over 1/3 of the touchdowns scored, almost 1/3 of the completions, and over 1/3 of the yards. And here's the thing, he wasn't only good in 2021 either. In 2019, with Trey Lance, Watson led the team in receptions, receiving yards, yards per catch, and touchdowns. He also contributed with another 162 yards on the ground on just 13 attempts, which is a ridiculous 12.5 yards per carry. So the fact that Christian Watson didn't have a lot of volume does not actually speak to how good or how dominant he was against his competition. In the 2021 season, North Dakota State only passed more than 25 times once. The average passing attempts for his team in 2021 was around 17. Compare this to first-round counterparts Jamison Williams, Chris Olave, and Garrett Wilson, and the volume that their offenses produce. The lowest number of attempts Bryce Young had in a game during 2021 was 22. He attempted at least 25 passes in a game, 13 times. CJ Stroud, quarterback of Ohio State, had 9 of his 12 games with over 25 attempts. Remember, Watson's quarterbacks threw 25 passes once in the entire season. The lack of volume in the offense makes grading him through pure production not the best idea, and just plain unfair. This is also why downgrading him for a higher percentage of drops is also extremely lame, because drop rate is a percentage stat. It's a statistic that naturally helps players with a higher target volume. To me, what the tape actually shows is concentration drops. Why? Because you can tell that Watson is hungry to get the football, and sometimes you lose focus. He's getting ahead of himself because he's probably a little bit frustrated that his team only throws the ball 15 times a game. Every potential pass play for Christian Watson, he knows he can make a big play. He wants to put his team in a great position and make a big play. That's his competitiveness getting the best of him. And by the way, in the 2019 season, the season where Watson had a NFL talent at quarterback, he only dropped the ball twice. Now, it's true, Watson has a pretty non-existent short route tree because the offense asks him to run a lot of deep ins, crossers, curls, posts, goes, and comebacks. Mostly all vertical stuff. Why? Well, their offense is about big shots to complement its great running game. Not only that, but it is beneficial to use a big, fast monster in that way. When you consider the circumstances, please ask yourself this. When you don't pass the ball very much, how extensive is your route tree actually going to be? And when you are as dominant as Christian Watson, why complicate things? One of my personal rules for scouting is don't confuse didn't with can't. Is the prospect physically incapable or mentally incapable of refining these skills? Can't. Or was it the system, the team, or the offense? Didn't. There is a major difference between being capable and never being able to do something. For example, Garrett Wilson will never be as fast as Christian Watson. Can't. Every prospect needs coaching. I believe Watson's route running can be realistically coached and refined. The tape shows twitch, explosion, and stop-start ability. He's never going to be Wes Welker, but with his size and his speed, he won't ever have to be. No matter what you think about his supposed limitations, they didn't seem to hurt him much at the Senior Bowl because Christian Watson showed off his freakish ability facing the top dogs in this class. And at the Senior Bowl, everyone was talking about Christian Watson. Not only did he perform, he dominated. He lit up the Senior Bowl and was the superior senior. Trevor Sikkema of PFF tweeted this about Christian Watson. Wide receiver Christian Watson has been the best wide receiver at the Senior Bowl practices all week, and today is no different. Pretty sure I didn't see him lose a single rep in one-on-ones. And it's not just Tampa Bay Trey who's saying this either. The footage and the reviews back it up, showing Watson's body control, his suddenness, and superior athleticism. Do you ever watch a prospect and fail to understand the evaluation of nearly every other person? Well, that's what happened to me with Christian Watson. It's the fun of the draft process, after all. Where some may see raw and uncalibrated, I see a superstar in the making. What I see is a prototypical #1 wide receiver who is built like Randy Moss, with the traits that transform offenses and traumatize defenses. I see my favorite prospect in the 2022 NFL Draft, the freak show, Christian Watson.